Everyone, my name is Sienna Ford, and I'm the president of UMD Democrats here at UMD. I'd just like to welcome you all tonight to Minnesota's Congressional District 8 DFL Candidate Forum. We're so happy you're here. Thank you for all the students and juniors who decided to show out and take part in an essential aspect of our democratic process. I'd like to first draw everyone's attention to the back right there. There's going to be a little jar as well as a QR code. We are collecting donations for the Friends of the Boundary Waters. They're an organization that's committed to stopping the current attacks that are happening on our beloved boundary waters within this district. And we would love if you would take a second, and if you're willing and able to, scan the QR code, or if you carry cash still. I personally I don't know if you guys do. I certainly don't, but you still do have a place for cash a little bit. But yeah, if you're able to, please, we'd love if you could help out and kind of have all do their part in helping these boundary waters. Next, I'd like to thank UMD Facilities for being here and helping us put this event. It's been absolutely awesome. I would also like to thank Joel, Rich, and also Grace for all their wisdom and guidance. It has been very much appreciated. I would also thank Sawyer, my vice president. He's done an incredible job, as well as Jacob. He's back there. He's our outreach coordinator, and he's been absolutely incredible as well. And we wouldn't be able to do this without them, so I'd like to thank them sincerely and with all my heart. This evening provides an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates that are seeking the DFL nomination to represent Minnesota's 8th Congressional District. And there, hopefully, we will unseat Pete Stauber. What really makes this district special is that it's diverse and expansive, and tonight is going to be a great opportunity to explore how each candidate plans to represent our regional priorities, from economic opportunity to workforce development, to healthcare access, education, rural and urban community needs, and ultimately to take proper care of our natural resources. Our goal tonight is to provide you all with clear information to make an informed decision on who you think is the best person to represent you all. And again, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you. And I'll now turn it over to Joel, the CD8 DFL chair.
Thanks, Sienna. Hi, my name is Joel Cypress, and I'm the chair of the Senate District 8 DFL Party, which is the local DFL party unit here in Duluth. And so if you're from Duluth, hi. And if you're not from Duluth, welcome to Duluth. Really glad to have you here. I want to just start by just a couple quick thank yous. Thank the candidates. Thank all of you for being here. And I especially want to thank the UMD College Democrats for putting on this event. It's so important. They asked me just to say a couple words about the whole process and how this whole process works. I know a lot of you know exactly how the process works. We always want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. So we know this is an incredibly important election year, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And it's really important that we take back the state legislature. It's really important that we hold the governor's office. It's really important that we elect a U.S. senator. It's really important that we have DFL victories all up and down the ticket. And I think we know how important that is. And not only because we need to defend our democracy from the encroachments of an authoritarian administration, but also because we need to make sure that the issues in this country and this state that have been going unaddressed for so long and have been festering and getting more and more challenging, we finally need to get all of those issues that have just been pushed to the side for so many years addressed. And so I'm so glad to see so many of you here, because that's not just up to our candidates, it's up to all of us to make sure that, number one, that we win, and it's up to us to make sure that when we win, we get the job done. And choosing our CD8 candidate is such an important part of that process for two reasons. Reason number one, because we need a candidate who's going to take it to Pete Stauber, right? Yeah. But I also want to stress that in northeastern Minnesota, our CD8 candidate is also the top of the ticket. The top of the ticket here all over northeastern Minnesota. So we want to make sure that we've got an excellent candidate, a strong candidate, who's going to lead our ticket and not only help us take back this House seat, but it's going to help us flip legislative seats, who's going to help us elect a U.S. Senator, who's going to help us elect the entire DFL ticket from top to bottom by helping us run the best, most energetic, most involved, most inclusive DFL campaign we've had in northeastern Minnesota in years. Because that's what we need to do, and I'm looking forward to one of these candidates being the candidate who's going to help us do that. So what we're doing over the next few months, and what you're all here to help us do, is to help us choose the candidate who can beat Pete Stauber, who can represent us well in Washington, and help lead us to victory top to bottom this year. And, and there's a two-step process for choosing our candidate that many of you may be familiar with, but I just want to run through. Step number one is this Congressional District 8 DFL convention that's going to be May 2nd. And the delegates to that convention have already been chosen, and some of you may have participated in that process because these delegates represent the rank and file DFLers from all over this district who participated in the precinct caucuses in February, attended local conventions, and chose our delegates. And those delegates from all over the district on May 2nd will decide on one candidate who will be the DFL endorsed candidate for CD8. And the way it works in Minnesota is that there's an official DFL endorsed candidate that's chosen by that convention that represents rank and file grassroots DFLers. And so these candidates are all vying for that endorsement. But in Minnesota, there's a second stage in the process, and that is in August, there'll be the primary. In Minnesota, the endorsed candidate goes into that primary as the official candidate of the DFL party, but other candidates are free to choose either to withdraw after the endorsement and support that candidate, or to run in the primary after that candidate, against that candidate. Personally, as our local party chair, my hope is that we come out of our May 2nd convention with the best, strongest DFL candidate we possibly can have, and then we all unite behind that candidate in May so that we're not fighting each other through August. We're uniting behind our DFL candidate in May so we can work as early as possible to do what is necessary to beat Pete Stauber, because it won't be an easy race and we need to be united. So one thing I'm asking us all to do today is to make our decisions today as to who we want to be that endorsed candidate. And then after our CD8 convention, let's all unite behind that candidate, because that will be our standard bearer. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
All right, well, thank you, Joel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sawyer Lech. I am the College Democrats Vice President and tonight's moderator. For this forum, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. For the Q&A portion of tonight's agenda, I will read questions that you have provided through the QR code. And that's yet to be up, but we're getting that up there, and it's back in the back of the room. Each candidate for the Q&A portion will be given 1 minute to answer the questions. I will cut them off after that or let them finish their sentence. The candidates have been briefed on the rules, and they will be given warnings if any rule is violated. 3 warnings will result in the candidate being asked to leave, although we hope that is not necessary. I would like to stress that tonight's forum is not a debate. Your questions should be formatted for every candidate to answer, and we do have your questions being screened. Any unclear, explicit, discriminatory, targeted, or non-question responses will be excluded. And that's up to the discretion of our president and myself. Out of respect for listeners and candidates, we ask that you remain silent during the entire duration of the forum. Verbal outbursts will result in asking you to leave. Please silence all forms of technology and other distractions at this time. And in the interest of time, we ask that all applause be held until the end. We have 8 candidates here tonight. And as I said, each candidate has 1 minute to respond to your questions, so I will do my best to get to as many questions as possible. On behalf of College Democrats, we have a statement of neutrality we'd like to read. College Democrats at UMD are committed to maintaining a politically neutral environment that respects the diverse views and perspectives of our students, faculty members, community members, and candidates. We will not take sides, and there will be no favoring of candidates during the forum. All rules will be equally enforced on the candidates and audience members. And before we begin, I would like to make a brief statement about the boundary waters. As we all may know, last week the U.S. Senate passed legislation that would repeal the 20-year mining ban in the watershed of the boundary waters. If one of the mining groups is granted a permit to mine, this will hurt the natural environment of the boundary waters and the legacy of our state. The land of 10,000 lakes will be tarnished forever. This is largely thanks to Pete Stauber, our current U.S. representative. One of these 8 candidates here tonight will likely receive the DFL endorsement in August, 7 candidates here tonight, one couldn't make it. One of these 7 candidates here tonight will likely receive the DFL endorsement in August and become Pete Stauber's main opponent in the November general election. Regardless of who gains the DFL endorsement, I believe that many, if not all of us, agree that Pete Stauber cannot remain in office. And with that, I will turn the mic over to our first candidate for their opening statements, and that will be Deborah.
Yeah, Deborah! Woo! Uju dinaway makina dug. Hello, my relatives. I am Deborah Topping, Fond du Lac band member. I have been raised, born here. My husband and I, of 42 years, have raised our 3 daughters. We have 4 grandchildren and 1 3/4 great-grandchildren. Any day. I am a water protector and a land defender. In 2010, I did the water walk with Josephine Mandamin. And during that time, you walk in prayer for the water and you make your commitments. And at that time, I made my commitment to protect water the best I can at all times, at all costs, because that's what is important, right? We can't live without our water or healthy food. My husband and I have raised our daughters to be responsible gun owners. They know how to hunt and fish and spear and gather. We gather monomen. I know about moose hunting up in Ely. You know, that's best moose up there. Is it moose or meese? No, I'm kidding. So I defended my word to be able to be here and talk with you all to show that this is a commitment that I have made to my grandchildren, to the elders, and of course to the community, because that's what we do as Indigenous people. It's not my job to take. My job is to be able to give everybody equally and to listen to everybody equally.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And if we could ask candidates to please use mics, there's a switch on the mic, and you're welcome to take it off the stand.
My name is Dr. Wendell Smith. I have lived up here in northern Minnesota, actually on the Iron Range, for the last 24 years, where I've practiced medicine. I'm a general surgeon by trade. Over those 24 years, I have spent all of my time talking to people, taking care of them. I've also spent a lot of my time sitting on committees. I have been on hospital commissions. I've been the president of hospital commissions. I've been chief of staff. I've been chief of surgery. I've been section chair. And through those years, I have learned how to sit down and talk to people about the tough things, to gain consensus and to build consensus to move things forward, often with people that have completely different and opposing views of what I may have or what other members of whoever is in the room may have. As I like to say, I was the one that got to sit in rooms with patients that had "F you Biden" hats on and convince them to take a shot. And so that is a skill set that I bring to build coalitions and to talk across the political spectrum and to gain consensus. What do I stand for? Well, obviously healthcare, but I think even prior to healthcare, we've got to get money out of politics. We need to overturn Citizens United. When we do that, we fix a lot of other problems. I believe in healthcare for all. I believe in Medicare for all, single-payer, universal healthcare. That is what we need for the impending health crisis that we're having. I also stand for the economy. We need an economy that works for us, that puts roofs over our heads and food on our table. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Maine.
Shall I begin? Well, let me just make sure this I think it works now. For those of you who don't already know me, my name's Emmanuel Anastos. I graduated from Carleton College in 2021 with a degree in philosophy. I live on the Lake Vermilion Reservation about 90 minutes north of here. Work for the Boys Fort Band of Chippewas, an Indian child welfare case manager, and I might be the youngest candidate in this race at 26 years old, but I was also the very first candidate to stand up and announce a challenge to Pete Stauber in June of last year. And right when I announced, I got calls from people I'd never met in my life, and they said, $3 million, that's what it's gonna take to beat Pete Stauber. And of course, I'm a philosophy major. I know there's no absolute rule of the universe that a certain amount of money raised is gonna equal a certain amount of people that are convinced to vote for you. So I quickly dispelled that notion. I've taken a much different approach. So at this point in the campaign, I've either spoken to or given a personal phone call to about 3,000 people, predominantly folks that came into their precinct caucuses on February 3rd and have played a role in this endorsement process that will culminate on May 2nd down at Chisago Lakes High School. And I tell these people, if you speak to just 2 people a week by the first day of summer, and then those people speak to about 10 more people, by the time we're at Election Day on November 3rd, we'll have reached nearly 600,000 voters, every single eligible voter in the district without spending a dime. Us young people often get a lot of flack for being the most active on social media, but I actually think it's our generation that might be the most sick of the social media society we've created. I think us young people are gonna be the ones to lead the way in revitalizing the true sense, organic sense of community in our nation, which is not only gonna help us take back our country from the Trump administration, it's gonna help us build a better and brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move next to Bob.
Testing. Make tomorrow a better day. That's the heart of my platform. If we all leave this room with it in our minds, clear intention, we're going to go out and make a better day tomorrow, we will. Wonderful neighbors, gifted faculty, talented scholars of this esteemed institution, thank you for having me. Sawyer, Sienna, Joel, thank you for your welcomes and speeches. Welcome to one of the most important moments of your lifetime, in my lifetime too, the 2026 election. Every 2 years in our constitutional republics, representative democracy, we get a chance. And we will punch back. If you're with me, we've been taking a bruising out there. We don't have a Congress. Stauber's not here. He doesn't exist. So we need to be the people that get these seats full at our next forum and get crowds overflowing because they're here to make tomorrow a better day. So a little disappointed we don't have a full audience, and we're going to work harder. I'm with Manny. I'm not collecting money. I'm not taking donations. I'm spending my money as someone who's applying for a job. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to be different. That's going to change if I win the nomination in the primary, because I'm going to be your best candidate, taking all the weight of what work we've put in and all the incredible talent we have at this table. I'll do everything I need to do at that point, but I agree with Manny. I don't think we need $3 million or Stauber's $2 million. And it's going to start with winning the primary with $5,000, showing that it's heart, it's feet on the ground, it's voices, and people simply committed to making tomorrow a better day. I'm Bob Helland. I live in Duluth, Lakeside. I'm 41 years old. And if you'll have me, I'll be your fighter, I'll be your champion, I'll be your gladiator in Congress. We'll impeach Trump. And yes, I'll protect the BWCA. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next we'll move to JP.
Hi, hi, I'm JP McBride. I was born and raised here in Duluth. In 2007, I graduated from UMD, the very institution we're in right now, with a degree in math, and it's great to be back here. I had the fortune of graduating right into the heart of the financial crisis, and I spent a lot of time on the unemployment line. I got diagnosed with autism, and I think that in a world where a lot of young people these days are alienated from society, that are alienated from politics, that see the Democratic Party as a party for, by, and of the successful, I think that I can reach out to them and go and have my adulthood of struggle helps me connect with people who are turned off by politics these days. I'm autistic, and if elected, I would be the first autistic congressman in the country's history. And I think that as such, I would bring an important energy that's lacking from Congress. I have an intense passion for details. There's no problem too big, no grievance too small. I have a passion for justice. I am not afraid to stand up to a crowd of any size and demand what's right for everybody. And I have the bravery to face this fascist administration head on and do whatever it takes to restore our trust in this nation and to tear down the billionaire class that has polluted people's minds and harmed the soul of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Next we'll go to Jeremiah.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Jeremiah Lind, and I came straight out of Bemidji, straight from Bemidji State University, where I work as the technical coordinator for performing arts. My undergraduate education is in theater, and my graduate degree is in interdisciplinary studies. I live in Turtle River, which is just about 15 minutes north of Bemidji, with my beautiful family, my partner, and my 3 incredibly weird kids. And they're why I'm here. They're why I do any of this stuff. And it's here to make sure that they don't grow up in a world that's dirtier, poorer, and sicker than I grew up in. That was my reason for running in 2020, and everything I consider has gotten substantially worse. I like to evaluate, and I encourage you all to consider evaluating your candidates by 3 criteria. What is their relevant experience? What is their plan if elected? And can they win? So to discuss my relevant experience, I've been running for office for more than 20 years. I first ran at the age of 24 in 2004 for the mayor of Bemidji. I ran again in 2008. In 2016, I was a write-in candidate for governor, and in 2020, I received the DFL endorsement to run for Minnesota House 2A. As you're all probably aware, 2020 was not a particularly fun campaign to run in. The global pandemic put us in lockdown the week after my announcement. Of course, in the midst of that, the murder of George Floyd threw our state into turmoil. And in Bemidji, we had some local domestic terrorism that we were dealing with. But the important thing I think I want people to know is that I stuck with it, that we saw it through. And although DFL candidates lost all across the board, my loss was within 0.14% of Quinn Nystrom, the CD8 candidate for this region. I think Quinn Nystrom and Jen Schultz were both excellent candidates, and I think that it isn't a question of the candidate, it's a question of doing things differently. So my plan is to end presidential immunity, end Citizens United, and place term limits on the Supreme Court. And I hope with the endorsement to be able to make that good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And then our last candidate for opening statements will be Trina.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Trina Swanson. I grew up in Hermantown, just up the hill. So last year at this time, I was in a career that I absolutely loved. I was working for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And it's a career that allowed me to represent our government abroad in Germany and in Kenya. I learned about foreign policy and national security immigration, how to keep our borders secure while also upholding our values. And I was the director of international operations running our 13 international offices out of DC when Elon Musk's Doge came barreling in. And overnight, the rug was pulled out from under all of us. And it's far worse than the media tells you. And overnight, I was not allowed to hold a town hall meeting like this with all of my staff. I could not send an email with any policy or guidance in it. I had to ask permission to buy supplies for my office to run. But the final straw was that I was asked to move a visa in my Honduras office, because immigration is okay when it's for them, but not when it's okay for us. And come to find out, it was for a nanny of a Doge member in DHS headquarters. So I kept my integrity. I left a career that I thought I would do for another 20 years. I moved home to the place that I love, where all my family is. I started an immigration law firm fighting back on what's happening in the streets of our cities. And I looked around, and it was not the community that I remembered. People were struggling. People were struggling to pay their bills, to afford everything. And here is why I'm running. My mom had a stroke in 2018. She was in the hospital that she put 42 years in as a nurse, and they terminated her when she could not return in the time they set for her. And my parents lost their health care overnight after working for decades. So what I'm going to do in Congress is fight for universal health care for each and every one of us. We are far too rich of a nation to not have that in this country. We will tackle the affordability crisis, and I will be the candidate and the representative that you all deserve, that shows up and doesn't hide behind a laptop.
All right. Thank you. As a reminder, we're asking you guys to hold your applause until the end. Will that happen? I'm not sure. But please, if you could, that would be amazing, so we can get through questions. All right. Our first candidate, starting off with the first question, will be Wendell. And the first question is from a community member. Oh, and I forgot to say, for questions, they are limited to 1-minute responses instead of opening statements, which were 2. So our first question from a community member is, politics and Trump aside, what do you believe the 2 most important issues affecting District 8 voters are in the upcoming election for a congressional representative, and why? And we'll start with Wendell.
The 2 most important things: number 1, we've got to get money out of politics. We've got to end corruption. We've got to overturn Citizens United, and that's first and foremost. Hawaii has just introduced a bill that we may be able to piggyback off of. In order to do that, we'll have to take a look at that. The second thing is healthcare. We are at an impending crisis in healthcare. Look at what's happening down in Hennepin, and that will start to reflect throughout the country. We are going to have a single-payer, community or socially paid-for system if we want to have health care. It doesn't matter if you have health care. If the hospital's closed, you still don't get it. Hospitals are going to start closing unless we start taking action now. Thank you.
All right, next we'll move to Manny.
Thank you. So yeah, limiting corruption, there's always going to be corruption, but limiting it as much as possible through banning private funding of elections and instituting a public system of campaign finance where everyone gets an equal amount of their tax money or tax revenue given to them each election cycle to donate to candidates of their choosing is going to really help. You know, corruption's at the root of a lot of issues. That's going to help us get a lot of other things passed, like universal health care. Also, a lot of you might hesitate on this, but I believe the genocide in Gaza is an incredibly important issue, because if we can't draw the line in genocide, if our politicians can't stand up against genocide, how are they going to stand up for democracy?
All right, thank you. Next we'll move to Bob.
So the top 2 issues, ignoring politics, ignoring Trump. Obviously, I'm pushing for impeachment. I want to bring Jared Kushner in front of Congress and have him answer questions as our peace envoy on every continent, making billions of dollars. The reason I got into the race is because I don't feel Congress is prepared or will be anywhere near prepared to deal with the level of hostile mega technologies coming down the pipeline. You'll find out I'm the anti-AI candidate in this race, or the most vocal about that topic specifically. The way it affects our education, our labor, and very personal to me is our arts. I don't want to be alive when the last child forgets how to play Mozart. That would be a tragedy. So Getting in front of technology, taxing it, regulating it. I worked for our Minnesota Department of Revenue for 5 years, so I know the federal income tax code as the e-filing principle. We need to raise the standard deduction from 16 to 50,000 and uncap Social Security taxes above 185,000. Feed those systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll move to JP.
I believe my number one issue is the project to destroy billionaire power. Even beyond money in politics, the power of billionaires corrupts every aspect of our society, from Elon Musk buying up Twitter to Kathy Cargill buying up half of Park Point. The power of billionaires to extend to every facet of our society just cannot be tolerated. I believe my one issue is to destroy the billionaire power. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll move to Jeremiah.
I'm going to violate the question, and I'm going to not put Trump aside, unfortunately, because Trump sort of filters down to so many issues facing our region, including the attacks on education, in particular higher education. If you look at the papers, you see that educational students all across Minnesota are struggling to make their budgets. And that comes in no small part because the Department of Education has been hollowed out, has been turned into a propaganda wing. And sort of so many problems that we face in the state can be traced back to Trump and his authoritarian politics. And that's why I believe that ending presidential immunity is key of my platform and such an important thing for us to address. The other thing I will say, in addition to the Citizens United, or where Citizens United and ending it helps, is addressing the runaway costs of healthcare that only benefit special interests and lobbyists for that industry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move to Trina.
So I think our number one issue is the affordability crisis, and that includes our health system. We need to have affordable and accessible health care, but we also have to do away with the thought that trickle-down economics works, folks. We have a middle class that's struggling. We see a big, beautiful bill that's going to put cuts in place as soon as the midterms are over that are going to hurt the middle class. We need to properly tax these corporations that pay nothing in taxes and brag about it. We have the 1% that doesn't take an income, that pays nothing into the system. We have corporations that are prioritizing their shareholder profit over all else, and we are subsidizing their employees with SNAP benefits and helping them because they're not getting that livable wage. But bigger than any single issue is the cliff we're on with our democracy. We absolutely need this blue wave so we can implement all of the things that my panel colleagues have talked about. So we need to have that blue wave so we can save this democracy, care about due process, care about freedom of speech, and get back to our roots, which is putting our community first.
Thank you, Trina. Next we'll move to Deborah.
Bonjour. I prefer to stand. It seems to show a little more respect. Sorry. The question is.
Repeating the question, politics and Trump aside, what do you believe are the two most important issues affecting District 8 voters?
Well, right now I see that nobody is getting heard. So that's pretty important, is listening to all the constituents, as I've said before. But also people over money. I will not be bought. Money doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't need big anything, right? We need to keep our water, no big data centers, our health care, and solar and wind. Miigwech.
Thank you. Sorry that we couldn't get this up sooner. This is the QR code if you have questions. I will say that we already do have a lot of submissions, but we are going to try to get to as many questions as possible. All right. So for our second question, we'll have Manny start. Our second question is from a student here at UMD. Will you commit to taking zero corporate PAC money as well as APAC money?
Yes, absolutely. I don't really suspect anybody to offer me APAC money since I'm, I think you can already tell why. Um, or corporate PAC money. I signed a patients over profits pledge. To make sure I won't take more than $200 for anybody associated with healthcare company ownership. But I also want to ban private funding of elections. So if people want to contribute to their own demise under anonymous donation names, go for it. But if I know you're connected to any of those corporations, then your money will be returned.
Great question. Certainly necessary, just removing money from politics, the billionaire influence that John Paul pointed out. I have a pledge on my website. It's bob4mn.com. And my pledge is specific to the race that I'm running as a candidate going into the primary. Like Jeremiah, I've run for several elections in the past. 2014, most notably, I ran against 3 others for Mark Ritchie's open Secretary of State seat. Among the contestants then was Steve Simon. He's an excellent Secretary of State. I'm so lucky, and we are so lucky to have him. But in the course of running these 3 campaigns, you understand where the money goes in elections. Consultants, fundraising, it's a vicious circle. Consult, fundraise. So knowing what I know and doing what I do with technology, with websites, with data, my goal is to do a lot of the things you'd pay a lot of money to consultants to do by myself, save that money, spend what I need out of my own pocket, win the primary. I would take PAC money after the primary as your best candidate to the general. That would be an option.
Thank you. We'll move to JP next.
I do not plan on taking any corporate PAC money, and like Maddie, I believe that my views on Israel would preclude APAC from donating a single cent. I think that if money decides elections, then Republicans will always win. Our best chance as the Democratic Party is to have values, to get our message across to voters, and believe in what we stand for. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my part to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Jeremiah.
Thank you. Yes, I promise not to take any corporate PAC money. I'll even go as far to say I wouldn't take any business interest PAC money. I'm running a funds-free campaign because I don't think that you should have to ask who's funding your representatives. If you look at the trend of private investment in money ever since Citizens United, the growth has been exponential, and every step along the way, your rights to representation have been lost to corporations and special interests. So I am running a funds-free campaign. The giant bucket of candy is my largest campaign expenditure, and I encourage you all to avail yourself of it before you leave tonight. But I believe in people-powered campaigns. The only thing that I would be willing to accept if I got the endorsement would be individual donors. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to Trina.
We absolutely need to take money out of politics. That's quite clear. We have a lot of issues. I think everyone running for the same position should get the same amount of money, and they can do what they want with it. That would level the playing field. It would allow a Congress with fresh ideas and not the same old people entrenched. However, we have to win, folks, to make change. We have to play in the sandbox that we have right now. I will not take APAC money. For other PAC money, it will depend on the PAC. I have been endorsed by Save the Boundary Waters and Women Winning, and both of those PACs have contributed to my campaign. Unfortunately, we do need money to win this campaign. Stauber is going to get all the money that he needs from the MAGA folks, and we won't outspend him. So we need to couple that with a grassroots effort that allows us to get out there, get people excited, and have them join the team.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Deborah.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. I refuse to take any PAC money. I'm here to work for you. And if you don't elect me, well, I'm certainly not going to go to anywhere corporations to get elected. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. This is for you and for our future.
so we can continue to live here, right? So, miigwech.
Thank you. And then for our last candidate for the second question, we'll do Lynn.
I will not take back money, period. I am the only candidate that can prove that he cannot be bought. You can go out to Open Payments, which has tracked all of the money that I've received from drug companies over the last 8 years. I have received 0.3% of the average general surgeon over that time. There's actually one little blip, and it was one meeting that I don't even remember. I was told a long time ago that $5 sandwich would corrupt me. I do not take money. I think it needs to come out of politics. How will I fund my campaign? It's grassroots. It's you are going to have to help us beat Stauber. And yes, it's going to take money, and I agree it's going to take money, but I am not going to take back money. I definitely will not take back money. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll start my answer by saying I'm absolutely in favor of universal health care, free health care, stuff that frees us up from our jobs, from all the other travails of life that make it hard to make other decisions about where we're going to live, where we're going to work. So yes, we absolutely have to move towards universal health care. I work adjacent to healthcare. I work in the medical device manufacturing. I'm a business intelligence director for an anesthesia and respiratory firm. So my visibility into the healthcare world is a bit unique, and some might say that the corporations, part of the products, and even the rural hospitals, the mega hospitals, IDNs, GPOs, everything else, all represent some sort of middlemen in the cost. So my big concern with universal healthcare is just that it would be without cost constraints. So we have to make adjustments in just that whole system, and it's going to be a long project. For the rural facilities, we have to get at fish in a barrel. So these rural facilities, they're going to be much easier for the federal government to step in and prop up, and we need to do that.
Thank you. Next, we will move to JP.
First of all, I would reverse Pete Stauber's cuts to Medicaid. And in the broader sense, I support universal health care. In my work at the ESCO warehouse out at the Essentia warehouse out at ESCO, the medical charts give me a view into all of the work that all of these local clinics deal working from. It's important. We need more federal funding to create more local clinics so that parents don't have to drive hours to get their kids' sniffles checked out, that old people can afford to retire in their homes. And as a congressman, I would make sure to do that.
All right, Jeremiah.
So two sort of key things. The first being the mechanism to try to generate universal health care. The first, I think, I wish I had a time machine to go back 20 years and keep the single payer in the Affordable Care Act. But I believe that single payer option could still be restored. I think that Medicare for all, or Medicare for all who want it, is the current paradigm or the current best bet at trying to achieve universal health care, and I support those measures. But again, circling back to the platform commitment to attempt to remove dark money from politics that Citizens United injected, no meaningful change is going to take place as long as we have pharmaceutical and insurance and medical lobbyists buying our campaigns. So a part of that is divorcing ourselves from those streams of revenue to make sure the decisions we make are the best interests of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Trina.
We absolutely need to fight for universal health care for all. However, we've seen this in the past. It is going to be a battle. We need to get some quick wins right off the bat. That's undoing the big, beautiful bill. That's ensuring there's not cuts in Medicaid. That's ensuring that we have proper funding for our rural hospitals and that they don't have to shutter their doors and people have to drive miles to get care. We have to ensure that people continue to have the subsidies. There's 90,000 Minnesotans that are going to lose those subsidies, increasing their premium by almost $180 a month. We have to undo that big, beautiful bill right away. We then have to tackle our prescription costs. Right now, we pay triple, double, quadruple what other countries pay for the same exact drug. You can go to Mexico and get it for a fraction of the price. That should tell you everything we need to know about all of the people with their hands in our pockets in our medical system. So we need to also cap life-saving drugs like insulin, which Pete Stauber voted against.
Thank you. Deborah?
Seems to come around to me every time, huh? Okay, so question was,
Sorry about that. Our third question was,
every time.
I'm sorry?
I'll ask every time, so.
Okay. Multiple rural hospitals in Minnesota are at risk of closure due to funding gaps. What is your plan to stabilize healthcare and access for our aging and rural population?
Funding gaps. Who controls the funding gaps? But the local hospitals, insurance companies. So we need to figure that one out, huh? How are we gonna get the hospitals to decrease what they are charging? How are we gonna get the insurance companies to say yes to these surgeries that people are needing? So, yes, we need to make sure that the hospitals and clinics continue to stay open, as they were said, because our aging infrastructure. And how do we do that? By taking a look at these insurance companies as well as the hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendell?
There are 19 hospitals in the state of Minnesota, rural hospitals that are on the verge of closure, with 6 of them over the next 1 to 2 years. Hennepin may close by the end of the summer. That is the crux that we are in. First and foremost, we need to reverse HB1, which is a big, beautiful bill. Next, we need to start funding the care that we are giving at the rate that we are giving it. And last of all, and most importantly, we need a single-payer universal health plan. There are bills sitting both in Congress and in the House, in the Senate and in the House, for Medicare for all. Those needs to be passed, and we need to do it now.
All right. We will move to Manny for our last answer to this question.
Yeah, simple answer, tax the billionaires. Instead of that money that we earn them going towards buying Elon Musk another boat or house or politician, we need to use that money to put ourselves to work, building things like rural hospitals, and which will create permanent jobs within those hospitals, not only treating sick people, but helping promote things like mental health within our community. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but there's at least one candidate up here that I'm glad they've come on board. You probably wouldn't be able to guess who. I'm glad they came on board with supporting single-payer healthcare, but in the beginning of this race, they were using terminology like access to healthcare and affordable healthcare, which to me just sounds like another denied claim, surprise bill, or even just skip doctor's appointment because you don't feel like you can afford to pay the bill that'll come after.
Thank you. As a reminder, no personal attacks towards other candidates.
No candidates named.
All right. Our fourth question, which we will start with JP this time. Do you support a federal assault weapons ban and other common sense gun reform to keep our communities safer? That's from a community member.
I'm sorry, but I do not. Well, there's a lot of talk in the party about bridging the rural-urban divide, of reaching out to voters who don't live in the cities, who have different cultural values. And I think that at some level you can't be willing to ask people to give without being willing to give something in return. I have had lots of conversations with gun owners and gun rights advocates, and I reject the arrogance that people can be educated out of their sincerely held beliefs. I believe that winning in November is the most important thing, and that when we, at one hand, denounce Trump as a vicious tyrant looking to overthrow American democracy, while simultaneously asking gun owners to give up their assault weapons, people will just not listen. Thank you.
thank you. Next, we'll move to Jeremiah.
Yes, common sense gun reform. I'm not supportive of an assault weapon ban because the current definition of assault weapon is left in question. If it's only semi-automatic rifles, I would be in violation of that. I'm also leery of the current DFL legislation and gun laws limiting capacities to 10 rounds. I believe that reform needs to be common sense. It needs to be centered in trying to protect the most vulnerable, but I also disagree with taking weapons away from responsible gun owners or criminalizing them. But yes, obviously, gun violence is a huge concern, but I think that we can address it without taking away weapons from responsible gun owners or criminalizing them into handing over their weapons. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Trina next.
I grew up in a house with guns. We were raised to responsibly handle them. They were locked away in safes. I think that's very different gun ownership than having weapons of war on our streets. It's the #1 cause for children's death right now is gun violence. And we need to fix that, and we can fix that through proper controls. We can close gun show loopholes. We can ensure that there are red flag laws around the country so that those that can't responsibly handle weapons don't have them. And that will still allow all of us to be able to go hunt and enjoy guns as we deem fit without those weapons of war on the street. We can also look at what we're doing as background checks and ensuring that they're fulsome. We also have to look at our mental health crises and ensure that those people that need help get it so that we don't find ourselves with shooters in our schools.
Thank you. We'll move to Deborah. Do you support a federal assault weapons ban and other common sense gun reform to keep our communities safer?
Thank you. I believe that everybody who wants to own a gun should have one. However, though, we need to limit the casings, the capacity rounds. I believe that if we want to take these guns out of people's hands, how do you do it? You raise the prices. But I know that a lot of people enjoy their guns, especially different ones, right? I know my husband loved his guns. Mental health crises are incredible. If you have ADHD, if you smoke marijuana, so that's what we need to look at.
Thank you. Next we'll move to Wendell.
First, I want to explain that Republicans pass more gun laws than Democrats. Now think of that as a concept. So there is common ground that we need to sit down and discuss. And if you sit down and honestly discuss with anybody, I think we can come to some common ground. Those common grounds are that we need to make sure that guns are as safe as they can be. We need to make sure that they're locked up and they're not in the hands of people that ought not have them. We need to close the gun show loophole. Most people agree on that and will agree to that. We need red flag laws. We need to, as what I call it, we need to decrease the crimes of passion. Once we have those things, then we can start to talk about the other things that I think that most people talk about when they talk about gun control. Do we need unfettered access to weapons of war? And that's a very hard discussion. But once we start to get a consensus, we can start to talk about those things among ourselves. Thank you.
All right, Manny.
I agree with a lot of common sense reforms that Trina and Wendell pointed out. I also agree with Deb that instead of taking assault weapons necessarily off the market, which is something that I might look at, limiting the capacity of magazines allows people to still have those guns that they want, while also limiting the potential for death and destruction that those things can cause. But this authoritarian moment we live in has really proven a lot of Second Amendment people right. I'm a Second Amendment person now. I never supported repealing it or anything. But now I see how important it is that we have the ability to defend ourselves from an authoritarian government. Thank you.
And we will conclude with
So if you stop by the meet and greet and you saw my handout, you'll see there's a big yellow column in the middle, something you won't see many candidates put out there. You're typically looking for a strong pro position or a strong anti position. But I think it's very important knowing that whoever gets this job is going to go to Congress and be inundated with all sorts of legislation, all sorts of information, and all sorts of data. So firearms, guns, 2A, is an issue that I'm going to hold a neutral position on. I'm a Boy Scout. I'm a father with young children. So there are going to be considerable arguments on both sides. Manny's exactly right with Alex Preddy and Renee Good. It was a wake-up moment for a lot of us who had a feeling about guns, all of a sudden thinking, we're all at risk, right in our own streets with masked marauders, a paramilitary presidential force. So I will hold a neutral position on this. I think there's certainly, in the things that touch my existential crisis of the technology that's coming, I would ban the ability of a weapon to be automated or to be fired remote and those sorts of things that separate it from the user's hands, a responsible user. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes these questions, and we'll move on, or sorry, not these questions, that concludes our previous questions. We will move on to our fifth question of the night from a UMD student. Representative Stauber has consistently won by comfortable margins in a diverse district. What specific tailored strategies or policy messages will you use to flip voters who have supported him in the past?
This is great. I had it in my intro, but I didn't get to it. So a phenomenon I encourage you to confirm that was discovered in 2020 when I ran was candidates in our race. I ran with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden got more votes than me. And my opponent, Matthew Grossell, got more votes than Trump. And it was curious to look at initially because I was trying to figure out why somebody would vote for Biden and not me. And if you look at Jen Schultz, in the presidential year with Harris, the same thing held true, that she had less votes than Harris and Stauber had more votes than Trump. And why that is, I believe, the best theory, is that they're lifelong Republicans, dyed-in-the-wool conservatives, GOP to the core, that checked Republican all the way down the box, and when they got to Trump, they couldn't do it. So they held their nose and they voted for Biden. It's because they knew that Trump was a danger, they knew that he was bad at his job, and if we want to flip voters, we have to show how Stauber is nothing more than an extension of Trump.
Thank you. Trina.
I met a gentleman that was in the Carpenters Union, and I start out every conversation like this. Please help me understand why you voted for Stauber and not Jen Schultz. Why did the Carpenters Union endorse him? And he said it's because Stauber voted for the infrastructure bill that got us the funding in Duluth to redo the roads and the bridge. And I said, respectfully, sir, that's false. He voted against that bill. And now to this day, he still texts me. He asks for my website. He spreads my message to all of his union buddies in the Carpenters Union. This is what we have to do. Open every conversation. Why did you support them? We take them back. We don't shame them. We speak in facts. People want to get away from this hateful rhetoric. We cannot go out there and just bash Pete Stauber. We have to explain why his voting record impacts the wallets of the people and their dinner room table, because that's what they care about, is how it impacts them and their family personally, and not the overall big hateful picture of politics in America today.
Thank you. We'll move down to Deborah. Representative Stauber has consistently won by comfortable margins in a diverse district. What specific tailored strategies or policy messages will you use to flip voters who have supported him in the past?
As an indigenous grandma, that's where I'm standing. We have 6 reservations in this district. And if people want to protect their water and food, then you will vote for me. I stand firm on that. I don't need to be paid off. So that's where I stand. Be great.
Thank you. Wendell.
In Minnesota, the Democratic Party is called the Democrats, the Democratic Farmers and Laborers. We have left the F and the L's, as I like to put it, the farmers and the laborers. Go look at the maps and you will see that we have left the F and the L's. We need to reach back out to them and explain to them that this is their party and we are their candidates. We have done a bad messaging on that. I am the one that has sat there in offices and talked people into taking the shot. I am the one that has convinced people across all party lines to do the right thing. They are my patients. They trust me. We need to explain to them that Pete Stauber does not vote and does not legislate in their interests. And we need to explain how we will legislate and vote in their interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny.
So people say we lost by 70,000 votes last time, and there's 63,000 registered voters that didn't vote. Exactly, registered voters. There's actually 200,000 eligible voters that didn't vote. And getting those people out to vote is going to be the strength of my campaign. I'm the youngest candidate in the race. That's going to help with the young people who usually stay home in disproportionate margins. Deb is the only Native American candidate on stage as I'm aware, but I also live on Lake Vermilion Reservation, work for the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa, and I have actually 7 bands in northern Minnesota within our district. I think that's going to help increase turnout amongst people from the reservations. And also I put outdoorsmanship at the forefront of my campaign. If you walked over to our tabling earlier, you could see my big sign of me holding a walleye that I actually didn't catch, but I think that made it an even prouder moment for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob.
Pete Stauber is a fraud. I'm going to look into that camera back there and I'm going to talk to Pete Stauber. Pete Stauber, you are a fraud. Now I'm going to run circles around you in the general election because I have expertise in fraud, sir. I was a fraud detection trained tax specialist with the Minnesota Department of Revenue. I was the MNLARS, if you recall, titling and registration system. It was a $100 million software failure. There was contractors inside lying about the project, asking for more money. I took that to the legislature. I took it to the legislative auditor. I took it to the governor's office, Governor Dayton. This was back in 2015. So my government career was fighting fraud at the tax department, teaching auditors how to fight fraud, fighting fraud internally as an employee who got fired as a whistleblower without whistleblower protections. So we're going to add whistleblower protections all throughout the federal government. We're going to open up those channels, collect the data, and we're going to be the eyes and ears of your federal government auditing all the bad actors, all the frauds. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll conclude with JP.
I want to bring this back to what Trina said about Pete Stauber taking credit for the rebuilding the Blotnick Bridge. The Democratic Party has become afraid of its own shadow. It has acted like it's lost legitimacy. When Biden passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that was named so that people like Stauber could take credit for it. When doing my research on this district of the Boundary Waters, I came across what's known as the Time-Blotnick Act. It was the act that created the Boundary Waters and created a payment system to compensate local communities for the Boundary Waters. And Time-Blotnick passed that in 1948 and proceeded to win elections for 25 years in a row. And I think that Democrats need to get back to that sort of thing where they're taking accountability and taking credit. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our 6th question of the night comes.
Folks, I've been touring schools along my 21 county tour, and these schools are petrified of these cuts that are coming in the big, beautiful bill. We have to decide that we care about our children's future and the next generation. Right now, there are schools that are going to go under if they lose their special education funding, and yet the federal government has not fully funded that since they put that in place. We have teachers that are leaving because they're not earning a livable wage. We have classroom sizes that are far too large. So we need to decide how we spend our money and what our priorities are. We can do that by ensuring we are properly taxing the uber wealthy and those corporations. We need to ensure that our schools do not have to go out for referendums because they don't have the money they need. And that means the federal government has to support the schools and not say that it's up to the states to fully fund schools, which means all of your property taxes go up.
Thank you. Deborah. Public education has been purposefully underfunded since the 70s. How will you stand for public education, educators, and our children?
My daughter is a teacher, and I understand how much money she has put in to help teach the children. So how can we do that? Maybe perhaps if we got half of the money from the war bill to fund our education? That seems pretty straight up there. And to tax the rich. I had certainly did some research there, and if we took like 3%, tax the rich 3% of the billionaires in Minnesota, that would pay for a lot of our problems with all of these things. Miigwech.
Thank you. Wendell.
First and foremost, we need to decide that education is important, and I do, obviously. I have 20 years of post-high school education. We need to reinstate the funding. Teachers get paid less than bartenders. Think about that. We need to fund them. We need to provide adequate education. We need to start thinking of post-high school education as something that's necessary. If we as a society say that you have to have a bachelor's degree in order to become a mechanic, then maybe we need to start funding that and funding it at a level that we're able to do it.
Thank you. Manny.
Thank you. So I want to say first off, I strongly support and will fight for universal college, universal trade school, and universal childcare. But I also want to say that I might not be here in the 8th District running in this race if Boys Fort hadn't hired me to work at the Lake Vermilion Boys and Girls Club in winter of 2022. I started out making $12.50 an hour. If it was up to me, I'd probably still be working there today. But I have to swallow some pride to say this, but I think they're actually a lot better off since I left because they've hired, not by choice, but they've hired a lot of native staff, more staff from the community, and I've seen what an incredible benefit it has to the kids. I was actually playing some baseball. It was a nice day yesterday with all the kids out there, and man, they were a lot better behaved than when I was there. So.
All right, we'll move to Bob next.
Health is wealth, but education is off the charts as an investment. Are we clear on that? Both for our communities, for our kids, for the faculty and everything else. We have to, as Wendell says, prioritize education. So if the idea comes up or any of these referendum comes up, I've got 2 kids at Lester Park Elementary. If a referendum comes up, I'm going to vote to raise my property taxes. I believe in that. I support that. I want to do that. As your next House of Representative serving in Congress, it'd be important for me to understand this is a pipeline issue. It's got the federal government, the state, it's got the local school district. So I intend to be active at all of those levels within the district, within those communities, not pitching a solution just at the federal level. We've got to understand the chain of financing and policies that got us to this point. But we all have to know that we're making this investment for our kids and for our communities, that people want to come here, live here, work here, and stay here. Thank you.
JP.
My mother has been worked as a special education teacher for decades, and I believe that we should have more federal funding for public schools. That funding for public schools should not solely be based on real estate values, that a child's education should not be dependent on what zip code they grew up in. I like to say that no civilization has ever fallen because it paid its teachers too much. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Jeremiah.
I work in public education. My children are in public education, and I can tell you that public education is getting its butt kicked. In 2020, I was proud to receive the endorsement from Education Minnesota, and I carry forward that commitment that we need to fully fund education, period. It's actually very simple. I personally wrote a letter to Governor Walz requesting that the budget surplus be dedicated to trying to stop the school closures and budget cuts that are happening. Across the state, particularly in my region, Beltrami County, Clearwater County, and Monoman County compete for the poorest counties in Minnesota. And so when things hit, they hit really hard in our area. But I also wanted to mention something in our community that happened very recently. They attempted to close one of our last schools inside the city of Bemidji, J.W. Smith, and our community members showed up. They packed the halls, every school board meeting, and they made their case, and they decided not to close. And that's, I think, inspiration that we can all take. We need to show up for our kids.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question, which comes from a UMD student. What ways do you plan to limit private equity from overinvestment in communities, and what do you know of the price hikes caused by buying out competitors? We will start with Deborah.
Can you repeat that?
What ways do you plan to limit private equity from overinvestment in communities, and what do you know of the price hikes caused by buying out competitors?
Wow, that's a pretty good question. I don't know much about that. So, private investors?
Private equity buying houses and making
Oh.
houses expensive.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely not. I believe that everybody deserves to earn their money, right? But when we have people who are homeless and cannot afford a place, then we need to really seriously look at these things. Increase our equities. Is that what this was? Sorry. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Wendell.
We definitely need to limit private or business buying up homes and turn them into Airbnbs or whatever. The problem with doing that is it increases the cost of housing, which then prices out lower and even middle class people from buying those houses, and so we need to limit that.
Thank you, Manny.
One of the best things that Kamala Harris put forward in her 2024 presidential campaign was anti-price gouging laws. I think that that's something that I will fight for in Congress. We all deserve to live a life we can afford. Another thing, another benefit of taxing the billionaires is not only giving us more of a tax base to actually invest in our country. I say it eliminates the billionaire problem. It's a problem, you know. It doesn't help us to have these people with this massive amount of money where they can just come up in and buy up everything. I tax all wealth above $1 billion at 100%. But anybody whose net worth is less than $10 billion, you won't see a single dime in your tax increase. If anything, hopefully the billionaires would shoulder a little bit more of the burden, and your taxes we'd be able to bring them down a little bit. So.
Thank you. We will move to Bob.
So it's a great question. Whoever submitted it, if you're in the room, I'd love if you contact my campaign that this is a longer issue than I can give an answer to in a minute, and we'd probably have a great conversation over it. So I welcome that. The question about private equity basically interfering, disrupting, and causing excess demand that raises prices, because we all know how constrained supply is. At a federal level, I think this is a local issue. The local community should have that power, and so as a federal representative, what I would ensure is that local governments are enabled to use their power of eminent domain to take back homes. Yeah, if they want to do that, they can do that. They can pass ordinances. There can be some sort of state legislation, but I would make sure that there's federal legislation that communities have control over their homes and occupancy to help bring down those prices. Thank you.
Thank you, JP.
As a child, I spent a few years living in Portugal. And in the 1970s, Portugal overthrew their fascist dictatorship. And over the course of the summer of 1973, the revolutionaries nationalized fully 70% of Portugal's economy. And I think that we could do that here. I think that we should destroy private equity. I think that the self-styled masters of the universe need to know that they serve society, that they do not rule us. And I think that we can start with the big media companies that have been bought up by Trump's cronies. We could start with SpaceX and Palantir and all of these other servants of fascism. We could seize them, and that the rest of the smaller players will be fearful and be less of dicks as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
So there's sort of two things I'd like to speak on regarding this issue, and the first is, yeah, the buying of private property by banks. I'm a Zillow nut. I don't know who else gets notices, but I always try to look at what's happening in my local market, and what's happening is a bunch of vacant homes are being bought by Coldwell Bank so they can sit vacant, while meanwhile we have a substantial homeless population. And if that doesn't sort of exemplify the problems that we have, that families starting out can't afford homes because they're all owned by banks, then I don't know what to tell you. So I'm supportive of those efforts to limit private equity, particularly in the case of housing purchases. But I also want to just bring up, does anybody remember anti-monopoly laws? When like one person would like own all the railroads and it would be like, hey, stop that. And unfortunately, tying back to special interests buying our company, there's no taste for it. There's no taste to stop Netflix from buying everything. There's nothing to stop Disney from owning every media corporation. There's nothing to stop Rupert Murdoch from owning all of the news that we get until we start bringing back some of those anti-monopoly laws.
Thank you. Trina.
So I think we have two main issues. One is people being able to afford housing. So we need to support those first home buyers in buying their first home. That means not coming out of college with a mortgage in their head that they can't afford to buy that home. We have to look at ensuring that we have affordable interest rates and that the banks, who we bailed out, by the way, how many years ago, aren't making an incredible profit. We cannot have Donald Trump's plan where you just get a 60-year mortgage instead of a 30, and then maybe you can afford a house. And then we need to look at our Airbnbs. We need to give communities more control over who's buying the houses in their communities. We need to look at tax law. How much tax are you paying on a home that's not even your primary home? And you just continue to add to your wealth, and you're able to pass that on to other generations of your family while the rest of us are struggling to even buy that first home.
Thank you. We have time for about one more question, and then we will move into closing statements for the night. If voted into Congress, will you support the continuation of aid to Israel? And that is from a UMD student. We will start with Wendell.
Can you repeat the question?
If voted into Congress, will you support the continuation of aid to Israel?
No, I will not. I think that's a simple question, or the simple answer to that question, but no, I will not. This is a problem that we've had for 60 to 70 years now. And we created it and we need to fix it, but I think that we need to stop aiding Israel and stop allowing them to commit genocide against their neighbors. And the only way we can do that is by withdrawing our support and our aid from them. We can still support them as a country. We can still support them in their quest to be self-governing, but we need to stop what they're doing to their neighbors.
Thank you. Manny?
Thank you. Yes, I would cut off all aid in all forms to the state of Israel. And it shouldn't matter, right? But this is coming from somebody who has 50% purely Jewish blood flowing through my veins. At the end of the day, does Israel have a right to exist? It's kind of an irrelevant question. But I've really come to see Israel, unfortunately, as an ethno-state. And I think they've kind of sort of created their own demise. So yes, absolutely, I would cut off all aid to Israel. I'll do everything I can to make sure that happens.
You have my commitment to root out and end fraud and abuse in all areas of the federal government, and that would include our foreign military spending, our domestic military spending, energy subsidies, all these sorts of things that really contribute to the crisis that we're in. So no, I would not continue to support Israel. I believe they've essentially committed fraud in dragging us into this war with Iran, and they've abused the power and generosity of the United States with, as Manny quickly points out, Gaza and several other areas around the world. So I think they as a state have committed fraud and abuse for long enough using our funds and our might and our power. And I, like all the other aspects of fraud and abuse in the federal government, and it's just rife. We know that we need a lot of committed and ready people to do this work and not push it off to these firms and consultants. We have to own the audits. We have to audit DOJ. We have to audit Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, JP.
I too would cut off all aid to Israel. I would support international sanctions against their apartheid regime. I would propose lifting all laws banning boycotts or restrictions on students' freedom of speech with regards to Israel. I would end the process of having people swear oaths to defend Israel in order to get public jobs. I would encourage the United States government to end their vetoes of international sanctions against Israel. I think that this is a moral cause of our times, and it's high time that we get ourselves on the right side of history. Thank you.
We'll move to Jeremiah.
So I would like to sort of separate out that I wouldn't necessarily be unwilling to provide aid, humanitarian aid, for instance, to Israel, but I think that all defensive support of Israel needs to end. I watched the bombing of Iran, and I saw that girls' school get hit, and I realized that it was my tax dollars doing it to some degree, that we're all sort of contributing to this unwillingly. And it's so clearly wrong, and it so clearly needs to stop. And so, yes, I would fully support the end of all military aid to Israel, with the qualifier that I would provide humanitarian aid for those missions.
Trina?
I agree that it's nuanced. I have worked as a diplomat and I've learned foreign policy, and I know why we spend the money the way we do as a country. And that's to keep strife and disease, war off of our soil and to maintain the allies that we have when we do need to give aid to folks. I am for cutting off aid for their wars, for their acts that they're committing against other countries and harming other countries, but the aid is a real factor. And I interviewed refugees in Tel Aviv, and I saw how they were hurting. I saw how they needed that help and support. I've worked with USAID. I know why we as Americans uphold our values to ensure those that need it most get that assistance. However, it is important to note that Israel does have universal health care for their people. So we get to decide how we spend our money and ensure that it's going to the right folks and not to harm other nations or attack them.
Thank you. We will move to Debbie.
No, I will not. Absolutely not. Aid to help for health reasons, absolutely. But I know it was because of genocide is what Trump had said, is why he is doing this war, because the president over there is doing genocide and he is a bad leader. So that's why we're there. So absolutely not. There must be a minimum standard as to why we want to support aid for any other country, language.
Alrighty, thank you. I don't think we have time for another question, but I can still give our last question that we would have given, and if you could include it in your closing, that would be appreciated. What makes you the best candidate to beat Pete Sauber? That's a community member, and you're welcome to answer that in your closing, and you're welcome to be the closing statements. We're going to start in a different order this time. We're going to start with Trina and then work our way down to.
Folks, I have the experience to hit the ground running. I am the only candidate that is bringing foreign policy, national security, immigration expertise. I know why Washington works and, more importantly, why it doesn't work. I will be able to go in on day one and fight for you all. This is about having a representative that shows up. I will continue to go out into the community, hold my head high, explain why I voted the way I did, and take feedback. I will grow and learn. I can never be the perfect candidate for all of you. I can never agree with all of you 100%. This is not about a purity test. This is about having somebody in office with integrity that will stand up for what's right, that will hold these people accountable for breaking the law, for violating the Constitution, for doing away with our due process. I am that person, and I can bring change very quickly and be the representative that all of you deserve going forward.
Thank you. Jeremiah.
Thank you so much. I think it was Wendell who said we left the L out of the DFL, something I didn't get a chance to mention because there were no labor-related questions. I'm also the president of AFSCME Local 1949, and a member of the IFO. I just want to say that I offer a particular combination of experience, planning, and willingness to do what has to be done. Across my races, there were 8,680 people that trusted me with their vote, and that's what I call a head start. Those are people who know me, those are people who trust me, those are people who believed in my message, and I would ask that you listen to my policies. I'm so thankful for the other candidates sharing their ideas. I think that there are a plethora of fantastic things to forward, and I leave it to you to decide who is the most electable, who has the best chance. Personally speaking, I would not be here if I did not believe I could win the race and help send Pete Stauber into retirement. I offer these ideas in the spirit of goodwill, seriousness, and hope, and if they speak to you, I would be honored to earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you. JP.
I hate Pete Stauber. And I think that as Minnesotans, we are uncomfortable with our darker feelings. We are uncomfortable with our anger and our hate. And I would not hold back. I want good things for this country, and for good things to happen, bad people must fail. I would make the point over and over again that Pete Stauber is a bad person. I would, there was, as a man in International Falls told me after one of these forums, it was the greatest thing. He told me, "Thank you for giving me permission to be angry." And I think that it's important for us to give the people permission to be angry. We have been humiliated. We have the good name of our district has been dragged through this mud by this small-minded, empty suit of a man, and I would give voice to the people's anger. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob.
I think Joel Cypress said it best tonight, SD7 DFL chair, top of the ticket. You got all of us up here. This is going to be the competitive part going into the endorsement, going into the nomination. So you have to ask yourselves, who do you want at the top of the ticket? Who can work with the candidates at the state and local levels? Who can work with other congressional candidates like Doug Chapin and CD6, going after Tom Emmer, number 7 in FEC fundraising in the U.S. House? I pitch myself as a candidate who's got a lot of experience running campaigns, my own campaigns. I was the bottom of the ticket, Joel, back in 2014 when I ran for Secretary of State. I worked very hard, and I got nearly 5% as a third party, nearly 100,000 votes. So those skills, those tactics, that experience inform me. I'm going to get out there and activate not only voters. I need to activate the candidates. I need to activate the delegates. I need to activate the party. All of us, if we can look each other in the eye right now in this room, we are not doing enough. And if you would join my campaign and help me, we have the best shot to take out Pete Stauber.
Thank you. Manny.
Thank you. I firmly believe that I'm the candidate with the best chance of making up that 16-point gap from last time because I think I have the best potential to turn out those voters that usually stay at home and also win over the people in the middle. A lot of the policies I've named, universal health care, just for one, are incredibly popular. And a lot of the reason that people stay home because they don't actually have candidates fighting for these issues. Another thing, other candidates can correct the record, but I believe I'm the only candidate that's called nearly every single one of the 3,000 people that participated in their precinct caucuses. So I think my demonstration, my commitment to hard work is another reason why I will be a strong candidate. But I say this humbly and with all due respect to every single candidate here on stage, but when I announced my campaign, I felt strongly that no matter who entered the race, I would be the most qualified and best possible candidate we could put forward. And as I, give my closing statements before you all here today, my feelings remain the same.
Thank you. Wendell?
Getting a group of physicians to do anything has been described as herding cats. I've spent my career herding cats. I've spent my career building coalitions. I've spent my career discussing issues. I've spent my career getting a consensus and then moving forward. I take those same skills with me to Congress. That is what you're voting for. Someone that can build a coalition, that can get the things done. I also live by my Hippocratic oath, which is to put patients before self, and I have sworn to defend the Constitution of this United States. That is what I offer. That is why I'm the best candidate, and that's why you need to send Dr. Smith to Washington.
Thank you. We will conclude with Deborah.
I will protect your water fiercely, as well as your food. Can you say any of the words that are in the recipes of the foods that, potato chips? We really need to make sure, when I was reading about where Duluth's water comes from, it says that at the plant, they add chemicals to help with the lead pipes. What kind of chemicals? I don't know. So I believe I am the best candidate to help you, help us, help the world. Miigwech.
All right, and with that, that will be the conclusion of our forum. Thank you to all the candidates, and a big round of applause for their answers. I'll say, College Democrats here at UMD is a new club, just revived after COVID. We started very small, and we still are very small here at UMD. We started in January by forming the club. There was 3 of us that started the club, and we've slowly been working at getting more members and trying to attract younger voters, because that's the big populace that we're targeting here at UMD. And it's been rough, and we're still working on building up, but we had an idea to do one last big event, and this was it. We have 2 weeks to go until finals, and this was the event that we decided, and we think it's very appropriate given all the circumstances of our current political climate. And on behalf of College Democrats at UMD, thank you for attending the CD8 Candidate Forum, asking questions, and being civically engaged. Thank you.